What's up, guys? JJ here, and today we are going to be creating a to-do list app using WeWeb and Superbase. And if you've been looking for an excuse to try this new hot stack, this is the perfect tutorial for you. So before we get started, make sure you create a free WeWeb and a free Superbase account. But otherwise, let's get going. So here we are in WeWeb, and I have already created my free account, and I'm going to go ahead and now create a new project. And in the new project, I'm going to create a blank project. All right, I'm going to call this a to-do list application, and I'm going to create that project. All right, fantastic. Now we're going to go into the editor of WeWeb, which is here we are now. Now let's go over to Supabase. And in Supabase, I'm going to create a brand new project. And this is also going to be called a to-do list application. And we're going to just pick maybe United States. And then one last thing that we need to do here is we need to type a strong password. Now this password should be super strong. So what I recommend for you is just mash a whole bunch of characters together, throw it to a password manager for safekeeping. And so that way you have a lock solid password. All right. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to save that in there. I'm going to say this is my to-do list app right up here, list application. And for this, we're just going to call it right there. And I am using a password manager called 1Password. And then we're going to create this new project and get going. Awesome. So here we are in a brand new Superbase project. And over here, we can see that we can navigate to our table, but we don't have any tables yet because we haven't set it up yet, but we will. But what we really need to do is go down to project settings, go to API, because this is the information that we're going to need to use to connect to WeWeb. So let's go back to WeWeb and let's go to plugins and let's go to Superbase. I'm going to grab this plugin and now we need the project URL. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to go into my project URL right here. And I'm going to grab this URL. And then now I need the public API key. And so I'm looking at my API keys and I'm going to grab this one right there. All right. And I'm going to grab it, paste it, copy it. All right. Fantastic. Now it's asking me if I want to sync any kind of tables. I'm going to refresh, but I got no tables there. So I'm going to continue. We're all good. I'm going to add this collection and I'm going to give it a name now. So it's a to-do list application. All right. And we don't need to add a folder for it. We're just going to say it's from Supabase, continue. Fantastic. We don't have anything there. Let's stay here until we actually go back into Supabase and do that, which is what we'll do now. So let's go back into Supabase. Let's go up to tables here. And now we have the ability to just create a table. And then once we create a table, we'll need to add the columns. Or you can go over to the SQL option right here, right? And you can use ChatGPT to create your own SQL database structures if you want in Supabase. But they also have these quick starts and these templates. And I'm going to go to a quick start. I'm going to do the to-do list app right now. So here I am, to-do list app. And you could see that it's including policies. And those policies are essentially like privacy settings, ensuring that basic data is protected in a private way, right? And so we're going to run this and we have a success. And now we should be able to go back to our table and see that we have our first table created. Fantastic. But we have no records there. That's okay. I also want to draw your attention to up here in the upper right-hand corner. Remember when I said about that RLS, these policies? Here they are. That quick start generator prepared these for us. And it's essentially saying that right now, if you want to create, delete, update, or select these records, it's applied to public, but we can then go in and change this if we want to be more strategic about who can actually create data, authenticated users, public users, private users, all that kind of stuff. So we don't need to do that now, but I just want to let you know, security comes built into Supabase, into WeWeb, all these things. Don't worry about that. We'll get there when we need to get there. All right, so now that we have our Supabase database connected to WeWeb, let's also connect the authentication to WeWeb and Supabase so we can create users, sync users, and get their information. Now, WeWeb makes this super easy. So let's go into auth, add authentication plugin, Supabase auth, add it. Now, it already pulls in our URL and our API key for us, so that's super easy. But we now need to grab the private API key. So let's go to Supabase. Let's go back into our project settings, our API, and we're going to grab this secret key right here. We're going to reveal it, copy it, go back, grab the key right there. We're going to continue. So now we've set that up, but now we got to define where we're going to redirect a user after they log in, right? And in fact, that would be the home, but we're going to take this chance to create a new page. And that new page is going to be called login. All right. So now we have this login page. which we can use to add in a login, a UI. So that way, once they log in, we can redirect them to home. Let's go into add. And now that you have the plugin installed for Supabase, you can go to plugin off and you'll have these pre-built components for you. And so you can drag and drop it right onto the page and you already are set up with your login actions. And so if you look into here, you click on this, you go into the editor a little bit more and you click on form container. Within that, you'll find workflows already built for you. So you can go into those workflows. You can see that we are already mapping these fields for the email and password. And then we have a redirect after that is successful. And we want to update that page and send them to the home page. All right. So now we have our password set up for this, but we actually need to create a user in order to do something with it. So let's go back up to off and let's add a user. Now you can also add a user by going into your authentication section in Supabase, but WeWeb makes this easy. I'm just going to add it here. So I'm going to go add user, say JJ and no code alliance.org. And I'm going to say JJ Angler. And then I'm going to set a password. Just grab this password. All right. And then I'm going to create. That has been created. And if I refresh this, there we go. I have just created my first user. And just for safekeeping, let's actually go and test this now. If I'm already in preview mode up here, so I'm going to say JJ and alliance.org, password, boom, and look at that. Now we're back to our home page, which is where we're going to create our table for our to-do list task, okay? But before I do that, let's go back into Supabase. We see that we now have a user there. And let's create some new items in our table. So we go to do, and we're going to create 3 items. I'm going to insert a row, and we're going to grab a user, and we're going to grab a unique user ID. So that way we can connect the task that we're creating right now to a specific user. And then we're going to say my first task. And if it's completed or not, false is no, and true is yes. We'll say false. All right. And we're going to do 2 more. We're going to grab the same unique ID, grab right there, my second task. We'll mark this one as true. And then finally, for this user, let's go and grab it one more time. Say my third task, false. But there's one other thing I want to do and show for you in this tutorial. So let's go back to WeWeb, go back to off, and let's create another user. Okay, it's going to be test@me.com, test user. Just generate that password. We're going to create it. All right. And so now we have a test user created. We can grab it here. All right. And so now if I go back into Supabase and I create a new row, and I'm going to grab the new user unique ID this time. That's going to be my first task, and that's going to be true. And so what I'm trying to show you here is we have 4 records, but in our to-do list application, WeWeb is automatically going to pull in the 3 records for the one user and not bring in that other user's information because we have an authenticated user in WeWeb. And WeWeb's really smart like that. And it's already going to automatically pull in the user's data only and not all users' data. All right. Let's go back into WeWeb, go up to add, go up to elements and go find the table and drag and drop it on the page. All right. And we need to drag and drop it into that little zone right there. So right there, boom. Now we have our table and they do a great job making an awesome, easy, like beautiful looking table for you out of the box, which I love. And so let's go into that section. We see our table here and our property editor over here. And we're going to go into content here. And now I'm going to go into the content and I'm going to bind this content to the items in my database. So I'm going to go here and I see in my database here, it's already connected. I have my to-do list application. All right. And it looks like the data is empty. So let's see if we can fetch it again. And it is still pulling up empty. So let's try it. I'm getting an empty list here. All right. And we have our connection with our Superbase auth right here. All right. So that's good. Actually, add collection. That's what we forgot to do. We needed to go back to that step and create a collection. We're going to say to-do list. All right. And then we're going to say the source, Supabase, continue. We're going to configure their tables. We're going to refresh that. We're going to grab all fields here. All fields is good. All right. Continue. All right. That's great. So we can turn this off for now. Continue. And we have that fetch data. And actually now look at that. Now our items are coming in. So we just forgot to finish this step. We need to go back to our to-do list app, set the source, set the configuration, and we should be good there. So now if I get out of here, I go back to my layout, go back to my content, and check out this data again. And I'm going to see that I have data right here. All right. And for this data, it is now coming in. I see these objects, right? And so this is coming in my first task, my second task. So that's great. It did appear like we had created this to do this application, but maybe not fully. So I'm going to never mind that and just use this collection that is working here. All right. So now that I have that created and set up successfully, so I'm going to grab this text here. I'm going to go into my text over here, and I'm going to, on the text, I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to say, all right, I want the item data. And what item do I want? I want the ID, but I don't want to just show the number here. I also want to show something else. This is where we can create a formula. So let's go item plus, let's give it a space, do another plus, and then we'll say the task name, okay? Right there. So you can see it's updating in real time, which is really cool. And maybe you can also go in there and add like a dash if you want a dash or something like that. Something like that looks pretty good. So I'll take that. That's pretty good for me. All right. And then what else we got here is for the second row is for this column right here, right? This status. So let's click on the column status. And we're also going to do something else here. We see, if we go into text, we see that we have the ability to create this formula. And for this formula, we have this Boolean field, right? And now I don't want to just say true or false because that's lame. I want to update this a little bit more. So let's use a formula for this. We're going to say if this data is complete, then we're going to do done to be started. And we're going to close that off right there. And so what we're saying here is if the Boolean is complete, then it's done. And if it's false, then it's going to be started. All right. Now that gives us cleaner looking text over here rather than the true or false. And I like that a lot. All right. We have the due date. I still want to keep the due date here. All right. But we don't actually have a due date over here. So let's go in and create a new column here. And it's going to be a new due date. A due date. And then the type, what is it going to be? It's going to be a date. All right. And we'll keep it like that. And it's saved. So now we have our due date here. And if I go and click onto this, I can just add some due dates here. Okay. And you can see actually that in my top column here, I have IDs and it starts at 5, 6, 7, 8. Why is that happening? I created some records and I deleted some records, but Supabase doesn't actually allow you to replace the unique IDs, which is really smart and helpful. So it just started at the next one, even though those records were deleted. So that's why it's 5, 6, 7, 8, if you were curious. But otherwise, I now have that due date in there. I'm going to refresh this data and go back here, and I'm going to connect this to my due date as well, which I have right there. That due date is now connected. I actually don't need anything for the team, so I'm going to get the team out of there. And then I'll leave these little ellipses there for now. We don't need to do much with it, but I like it. And then let's go to this section here. And I'm just going to make this look a little bit nicer, okay? And it's just too wide for me. So I'm going to actually go to this table and I'm going to do a max width on this table. So the max width is going to be 1280 and I'm going to have it horizontally aligned in the middle, not like that. Let's see, where's our horizontally aligned to self? There we go. All right. And now on this section, I'm just going to add some padding. Let's do maybe 48 up and down all the way around. That's looking pretty good. And now let's go back to our table here. And let's do a little bit of a border color and a border radius. So we'll do a 1 border and we'll make that border like a light gray here. Let's see, how's that look? Nope, it's not coming up well enough. Let's try it again. Right here, that border. And I gotta add just actually 1 pixel there. Let's see, how's that look? All right, that's fine for now. Now let's do a radius on this of 12. All right, that's a little bit better. I'm actually going to bring this down. Maybe just bring the opacity down just to 75. Yes, that's all right. But I think that's looking pretty good generally. All right, now if I go to preview this, I have my table with real data being loaded from Supabase. Again, just 3 records, even though I have 4 in my database. And that's because it's pulling just the user that I'm authenticated as into this table. All right, let's just finish this up with one last step. And that last step would be to create some CRUD functionality so we can create a new task in WeWeb and have it updated here directly, right? So for that, let's go in and drag a button to our page. All right, so I'm going to go to buttons. I'm going to drag this up here. Fantastic. I'm going to click on this button. I want to have a right alignment for this button. So I'm going to go down to my alignment section. on the button, and I'm going to have it right aligned, right? Let's see, have this right aligned here, but it's not fully that way. So we got to go to, the display down there. All right. And now we need to go back and to this section and add a little bit of gap spacing between the button and the table. And so we go to the section to add this gap spacing because it's just going to be the best practice and save you a lot of time for just having nice row gap spacing here. If you add new elements to the page, it's just going to be formatted well from the get-go. All right. So we have our row gap, which is vertical space, and then horizontal gap, which is our column gap, and that's space side by side. But right now we're in a column and we're just going to use our column gap, a row gap there. I'm going to click on this button. I can change the text for this. And so I could just click here and say, create new. I can click on this icon here. And if I want to change to different icons, I'm going to go to this plus button. So I got that new icon. WeWeb makes it really easy to do stuff like that. So let's get into the CRUD functionality for this. So if I click on this button, what I want to do here is I want to create a workflow. So I'm going to go over my actions and I'm going to create a new workflow. And now we need to do a couple of things, actually. We need to first have some kind of interface modal that we use to create this new functionality, right? Before we can actually even create this workflow, we need to show some kind of modal which collects the name, the due date, is it true or not? And then on that workflow, we're going to hide that, create that task, all right? So let's go over to our ad, and we're going to just search for our, and we're just going to search for a pop-up sidebar. I'm going to grab that, and we're going to place the components, and it's going to include variables right here. And this is a show variable that they use to show and hide it, all right? And so whenever we need to show this sidebar, we're going to update the variable to true. And then whenever we want to hide it, we're going to update the variable to false. All right, so we're going to place the component. There we go. Now we have this sidebar component, and we can click on it. We can go into it, and we can force like always on right here. And we're going to do that just for now so we can edit this. We're going to remove that, and we need to add some inputs. I'm going to go add. I'm going to go into my inputs here, and I'm going to look for the first input of just a regular default input. I'm going to bring it over here. I'm going to have this as task name. All right. And you could see that we have this additional text. We're going to get rid of that. We got to update the spacing here. And if we try to update the spacing, we go to the row gap. Let's see what we get. That looks perfect. So we'll do that. Now let's go back and find another input. And this is just going to be actually a drop-down input, a single select. So let's see if we can find any kind of single select here. We see a multi-select, which could work as well, but I'm going to drag and drop this single select in there. So there we go. And now I'm going to say complete, get rid of that. All right. And then we see that we have these options here, and actually we don't want these options. So I'm going to go back into the editor over here, and I'm going to look for these options, but I got to grab this one right here, that input select. And then I can see it over here in this tab, what options I have. And I'm going to actually delete that one. I'm going to say yes, and that's going to be true. And I'm going to say no, and that value is going to be false. All right. So now if I click on this, I can see yes and no. And also I can change this placeholder text, right? And let's go and change that placeholder text, right? Click there. And we're going to say, is this complete? All right. So the last thing that we need to do here is we need to add a date field so we can pick a date, right? So I'm going to go and add a new component here. And these inputs and controls that come with these nice formatting, they don't actually include a date. So I'm just going to grab a default here, grab it here. See, we're going to move it just up here a little bit. See, we're going to grab the whole thing here, move it up there. All right. And now I'm going to get rid of this. And now I want to switch this. I don't want this to be a regular text input. I need to switch this to a date input. So let's switch that around. Input type, it's going to go over here, and it's going to be dates. So look how nice and easy that was. That was fantastic. And then we're going to say due date here. All right. So we have our pop-up now that we've created where we have essentially create task. And now we have the task name. Let's just change the placeholder for this task. Go to here, and we'll go elements name, placeholder right there, task name. And again, a placeholder is just a temporary hint for the user indicating what they should put into that field. It's not initial content where initial content is actually like true values that would be saved if there was no values inserted into that input. All right. So the difference between placeholder and initial content. But here we have this sidebar and it's ready for us to add some actions to it. All right. So I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to force this to being off of as of no, but I need to click on the proper sidebar, go back over here. I'm going to turn that off, go to my button here, and I'm going to create a new action. And this new action is going to go and we're going to update the variable. So we're going to change a variable value. And what variable do we want to do? Well, we're going to show sidebar. And the variable that we're going to change here is the actual show one. And I think in this case, it's going to be our show copy. I think it's going to be a show copy because I had already brought it in and deleted it, brought in a second one. So it's going to be show copy. We're going to see true there. True means it's open. It's going to view, and then false would be no. Okay. So let's go and preview that. Click that. Boom. There we go. Comes with that nice animation and everything. That's looking real nice. Now we got a final step. We now need to configure this. So once I add these inputs, I hit continue. It's going to update the variable, make it false. Then it's going to insert something into the Supabase database. Insert also means add. So we're going to create a new entry into the Supabase database, which is then going to be linked up here, authenticated with our user. Okay. So for that, we're going to need to go back into our editor, click on this button here, and we are going to create a new workflow. All right. And so for this workflow, the first thing that we need to do is we're going to create a new task. So we're going to go down here. And now, because we have the Supabase plugin installed, we see that we have all these things for selecting, inserting, updating, deleting, etc. So we are going to insert. And then when we insert that, we can go over here and we're going to say create new task. It's always good to name everything, keep everything updated. What one are we going to do? We're going to update that. It's going to bring all of this in, right? And then we have all of our fields here. Now, it's important to note you can keep the unique ID field blank. It's automatically going to create that for us, but we do need to link our user record. So I'm going to click on the bind field. I'm going to go over to my authentication, see my user, and I'm going to click on this ID right here. All right. So now we've just binded it to the current user, the current value of this application. Now, the tasks that were being created, we didn't actually do a good job with our inputs. If we go to our front end here, we'll see that in the pop-up sidebar, we have answer input. So let's actually get out of here quick and just update our inputs. And we're going to say that this right here is going to be task name. And this right here is going to be complete. And then this one right here is going to be our due date. So that way we can make sure that we're mapping the right values to the field in our database. We get back here, go back into our workflow, back here. And then so we have our task and the task name essentially. And we're going to say task name right there. Fantastic. Now is complete. For the is complete, we have the complete right there. But we need to actually format this because it is a Boolean field. And all we need to do to say that it's Boolean is we're going to say to bool, boom, right there. And then we're going to close it off. And now this is going to say if this is true or not. We've formatted this the single select as a Boolean. All right. And now finally, we can grab the due date and go down and grab the due date right there. All right. And if we want to test this, we see that this didn't actually work. And why didn't this work? We have all logs right here. We say invalid input syntax for type date. Okay. And so the type date, it's looking, what is it? The insert date is complete, the task actually didn't come through and the due date didn't come through. All right. And we need those to actually come through. If we go over here and we say task, what we could do is actually go back to our values here and we can say test and we can say yes. And we could say add a date here. All right. Now we can go back into our workflow, grab it here, test it again, and boom, that works. And so what it actually did there is it took the values in our preview mode right here, and it used those for test values. And the reason why it errored out is because we can't send an empty task name or task due date to it because those are our database policies. It's not going to let us do it. But by adding this on the preview here, we sent that and that worked successfully. All right. So there's one more actual step to this workflow. So we got to get back in it. And that is to actually hide the sidebar pop-up. So again, we can go in here. We're going to change our variable, right? And we're going to say hide pop-up, label that. choose that. And we're going to say show copy, and that's going to be false. All right. And that should, I think, do it. We could add a refresh collection here. So that way, when we create this value, it actually refreshes in the repeating group or the list. But right now, we're just going to try this out. We can get out of here. We're going to say, all right, create new, let's say, 5th task. And this is complete. Yes, it's complete. And when the due date is, I know that doesn't make sense, but complete. That went away. All right. Now, if we go and check our database here, look at that. 5th, complete. Yes, there we go. And if I were to just refresh this, there it is, my 5th task. So guys, that brings us to the end of this tutorial. In this tutorial, we created a Supabase account, a WeWeb account, both free, connected Supabase to WeWeb, simple as connecting the Supabase plugin along with the Supabase auth plugin. From there, we created new users in WeWeb. And then with those new users, we created new to-do lists. We're showing those lists in a beautiful little table here. We added button functionality with a sidebar pop-up with those inputs so we can create new tasks. When those new tasks are created, they are sent to Supabase. They are updated here. And we just created a very simple to-do list application using WeWeb in Supabase in the last 30 minutes or so. So pat yourself on the back. You should be super proud of yourself. And if you want more of this, let me know. But otherwise, I hope this is just a really good primer for those looking to get started with Supa and WeWeb for the first time. It's a really good combo. This is an excellent stack for many reasons, especially those looking to compete for enterprise clients. WeWeb has everything that you need on the client side to really deliver a stunning front end, along with all the capabilities of being able to export clean JavaScript code and Vue.js. That makes it really easy for your enterprise clients to bring their code on-prem to match all of their security protocols for large companies where some of the other no-code platforms just can't do because they can't export their code like that. But WeWeb makes that super easy. Supabase is affordable, and you need to know a little bit of code generally. But as you saw in this tutorial, we were able to navigate everything properly without actually coding anything. Super affordable, super fast, super scalable, Supabase. So Supabase, WeWeb, check it in your next stack for your next build and let us know if you need more. But otherwise, that's JJ signing off for today. See ya.